"Emma, since you're already in the kitchen, you might as well help with the appetizers," my mother said without even glancing at me. Her voice carried that familiar note of dismissal as she fussed over Victoria's designer dress. "The catering team is short-handed, and you know where everything goes." I stood there in my carefully chosen Valentino gown, a glass of untouched champagne in hand, watching my childhood home transform into a shrine for Victoria's engagement. I'm 32, the CEO of a successful philanthropic foundation managing millions, including the funds keeping our family's precious community center alive. Yet here I was being treated like staff. "But Mom," Victoria pouted, smoothing her dress with practiced grace, "Emma's wearing Valentino. Wouldn't it be awful if she spilled something?" Her concern was as fake as her lashes. "Then she should have worn something practical," my mother replied coolly. "The mini quiches need to go out first." My jaw tightened. Years of boardroom diplomacy kept my face composed. "Mom, I'm a guest, not part of the catering staff." "Don't be difficult," she snapped. "Victoria's future in-laws are here. The Hamiltons are very important people, and everything needs to be perfect. You're great at organizing. This is your thing, isn't it?" But because running a multi-million-dollar foundation was just organizing things. Right then, Victoria's fiancé James strolled in, heir to the Hamilton real estate fortune. "There's my beautiful bride-to-be," he said, wrapping an arm around her waist, barely acknowledging me. "The guests are asking for appetizers." "Emma's got it," Victoria chirped, flashing a smug smile. "She's so good at serving." Something inside me cracked. For years I'd watched her get it all. The attention, the praise, the indulgence. When she dropped out of college to find herself in Europe, our parents funded a 2-year tour. When I graduated summa cum laude and launched my foundation, they skipped the ceremony because Victoria had a modeling callback. Now here I was, once again expected to serve, literally, at her party. I gently set my champagne down. "Actually, I have a call with our Tokyo office in 10 minutes. You'll need someone else." James raised an eyebrow. "What could be so urgent about your little charity that you can't help at your sister's engagement?" Little charity. If only he knew their latest development deal hinged on funding from my little charity. My mother's eyes narrowed. "Emma, you will not embarrass us in front of the Hamiltons. That call can wait." I checked my phone and smiled. "Actually, the board members of the Hamilton Foundation will be on this call. Should I tell them you said hello?" For the first time, James hesitated. "The Hamilton Foundation. Why would—" "Oh," I said casually. "Didn't Victoria tell you? My foundation is the primary funding partner for your family's next community project. We're finalizing approvals tonight." Color drained from his face. Victoria's smirk vanished. "If you'll excuse me," I said, smoothing down my gown. "I have some important organizing to do." As I walked toward the study, I heard my mother hiss, "Victoria, why didn't you tell us Emma's foundation was involved with the Hamiltons?" I didn't know," she stammered. "She never talks about work." "No," I thought. "You never ask." Inside the study, I closed the door and opened my laptop. There was no Tokyo call, not tonight anyway. But the funding request for the Hamilton project sat in my inbox, unsigned. For years, I'd been the silent supporter. The reliable one. The invisible one. That was over. I pulled up the foundation's database. Every dollar granted to our family's beloved community center was there. Victoria served on the board. Her only real job, a vanity role our parents had orchestrated. The center was her passion. I hovered over the budget review tab. The next funding cycle was approaching. Maybe it was time my family learned exactly what my work really meant to their picture-perfect lives. The next morning, in my office high above the city, I reviewed the updated reports. My assistant, Kate, entered with coffee and a raised brow. "Your mother's called 6 times. Your sister emailed, urgent. Something about the community center's gala." Took a sip. They must have seen the funding list. The grants marked, under review. That did it. The phone buzzed again. My mother. Emma, she said as I picked up, panic in her voice. There must be a mistake. Victoria says the community center's grant was cut. Not cut, Mom. Under review. Standard procedure. But this is family. The gala's next month. Victoria's been planning it for weeks. The Hamiltons are expecting a big announcement. Yes, the development project they failed to mention while I was busy in the kitchen, I said evenly. Silence. Is this about the party? Are you punishing Victoria because we asked you to help? No, Mum. This is about accountability. The board requires financial records and measurable impact reports. I'll need data from the last 3 years. Her voice wavered. But Victoria only took over bookkeeping last year. Before that, it was all informal. Exactly. Informal is code for non-existent. I'd suspected as much. Well then, I said into the phone, that's where we'll start. Have Victoria send over whatever records she does have. The board meets next week to finalize quarterly allocations. But the gala, my mother began. The gala isn't my primary concern, I cut in. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with the Hamilton Foundation in 10 minutes. I ended the call and turned to Kate. How long until Victoria shows up in person? Kate glanced at the clock. Downtown traffic. 20 minutes. Tops. Took 17. Victoria burst into my office, eyes red-rimmed, makeup slightly smudged. In her arms was a chaotic bundle of papers, some crumpled, some barely legible. You can't do this, she cried, dropping the mess onto my desk. The community center is my life. The gala is my moment to show James's family what I can do. I flipped through the pile, noting credit card statements and handwritten IOUs mixed in with vague event notes. Your moment? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Tell me, what exactly did you do with the $500,000 in funding we gave the center last year? She blinked. We had events. Important ones. Community things. Things, I repeated flatly. Like the luxury wine tasting you charged to the center's account. How does that support our mission of youth education and elder care? Her cheeks flushed. That was for networking. To bring in donations. Did any donations materialize from that networking? She hesitated. Not yet. And the 3 qualified staff members who resigned last month. Social workers with actual credentials. They weren't fitting the center's new image. I leaned back, studying her. For years, Victoria had been the charming one, the golden child. But charm can't balance budgets, and beauty doesn't cover incompetence. Victoria, I said quietly, the foundation isn't mom and dad. We don't run on image. We run on results. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Please, if the Hamiltons find out, if they learn I treated the center like some personal party fund. I looked at her. Really looked. Past the designer clothes, the perfectly glossed lips. I saw it, raw fear. Fear of being exposed. Of losing everything her image depended on. Anything? Asked, eyebrow raised. She nodded, desperate. I pulled out the folder I had prepared earlier. The foundation is implementing new oversight at the center, I said. You'll resign from the board immediately. We're bringing in real management. You'll spend the next 6 months volunteering, actually volunteering with our youth programs. Volunteering? She echoed, horrified. But my schedule is suddenly very open, I said coolly. Unless you'd prefer I share these financials with the Hamilton Foundation? Her hands shook as she grabbed the folder. When do I start? Smiled. Today. The after-school program needs help serving snacks. Just try not to spill on your designer dress. The community center's annual gala looked nothing like Victoria's original vision. No champagne towers. No caviar stations. Instead, the walls were lined with photographs. Elderly residents learning to use email. Teens in coding boot camps. Single parents receiving job training. And near the buffet table, paper plates, not porcelain, stood Victoria in an apron serving snacks to wide-eyed kids. A moment of real service. Finally, And for once, she didn't look like she was playing a part. I stood at the entrance, greeting board members and donors as they arrived. The room buzzed with energy. Laughter, admiration, connection. The banners lining the walls showed real impact. Seniors proudly using tablets, teens presenting coding projects, a space transformed by purpose. My mother appeared beside me, looking almost shy in a modest black dress. She wrung her hands nervously. "Emma," she said quietly, "everything looks different. Different good or different bad?" I asked, watching her expression. She glanced around at the photographs, the people, the warm atmosphere that felt so unlike the superficial galas she used to throw. "Just different," she murmured. Then added, "Victoria's been different too. Working with real people instead of planning parties tends to do that." Before she could respond, James Hamilton approached, his parents close behind. His demeanor had noticeably shifted since discovering that CharityWorks' sister actually controlled key funding to his family's real estate empire. "Emma," James said, extending a hand. "The transformation here is remarkable. Our board is incredibly impressed with the new direction." "Thank you, James," I replied, shaking his hand. "It's amazing what proper management and mission clarity can accomplish." I turned to his parents. "I believe we have a meeting tomorrow to discuss Phase 2 funding?" Mrs. Hamilton nodded warmly. "We've reviewed your proposal. Your focus on sustainable community development is exactly what we've been looking for." I saw my mother blink in surprise, clearly shaken by the realization that the daughter she had once relegated to the background was now the one shaping conversations with the very people she'd spent years trying to impress. Just then Victoria arrived, not in a couture gown but in the center staff polo and jeans. Her hair was pulled back, her makeup understated, and faint smudges beneath her eyes hinted at real effort, not exhaustion from socializing. "The youth coding demo is ready," she said, all business. "And Mr. Peterson from the Senior Center wants to show everyone his new digital art gallery." I caught something new in her tone, pride. Not the superficial kind that came from praise or presentation, but the grounded kind that comes from doing something real. "Well done," I said sincerely. "Why don't you give the Hamiltons a tour?" She nodded, leading them away. I overheard James say, "You never told me you were interested in actual community work." My mother touched my arm. Her voice was softer now, stripped of condescension. "Emma, I think I owe you an apology." I turned to her, caught off guard. In 32 years, I had never heard those words from her lips. "All these years," she said, "we pushed Victoria into the spotlight because we thought she needed it more. She was the pretty one, the social one. We thought charm would open doors. But you built something meaningful. Without our help." She hesitated, then added, almost ashamed, "And we used your success to prop up Victoria's image. We made you serve at parties when you should have been the guest of honor." Across the room, Victoria laughed as she introduced Mr. Peterson to a donor, gesturing proudly to his digital gallery. She looked grounded, capable, human. "Sometimes serving others is exactly what we need to grow," my mother said quietly. "Is that why you made her volunteer instead of just cutting the funding?" He nodded. "The foundation doesn't exist to punish. It exists to make an impact. And sometimes the biggest impact is helping someone rediscover what matters, from the ground up." Later that night, after the gala had ended and the guests had gone, I found Victoria in the community center's small kitchen, our old hideaway spot. She stood there in her polo and jeans, nervously fiddling with her volunteer badge. "There's something I need to say," she began. Waited. "I've been awful to you for years," she said. "I took advantage of your work. Mocked it. Let James disrespect you. Watched Mom and Dad treat you like staff. And I enjoyed it because it made me feel important. And now?" Asked gently. She looked up, eyes glassy but determined. "Now I get it. These past few months working with the kids, seeing the real changes. Get it. This is real. More real than the parties or designer gowns or who you know." She took a breath. "James and I are postponing the wedding." I want to earn my spot on the center's board this time. Understand the budget, the impact data, maybe even go back for that social work degree I once laughed at. I studied her. The entitlement in her eyes had been replaced by something stronger. Resolve. The foundation's always looking for qualified program directors, I said. Really? Her voice lit with cautious hope. You'd give me another chance. No, I said gently. But I'll let you earn one. And this time, I'll know it's for the right reasons. She nodded, glancing around the kitchen with a bittersweet smile. Remember when Mom made you serve appetizers at my engagement party? She asked. Hard to forget. Well, next family event I'll be right here with you. In the kitchen. Not because someone made us, but because sometimes the best way to lead is to serve. Smiled. We had come a long way from that night of bitter silence and invisible wounds. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about tearing someone down. It's about helping them rise with you. I grabbed an apron from the counter and tossed it to her. Come on, let's clean up. We've got real work to do.